The espresso machine hissed, a tiny, metallic warning in the hushed Milan cafe. Then, one ring of her phone, followed by 3 soft, melodic words, "Pronto sono Elena." And it was as if time itself held its breath. Every fork in that quiet, unassuming room froze mid-air. Why? Because the man in the impeccably tailored charcoal suit, the one the newspapers whispered about as Il the king, just locked eyes with her. A dangerous, calculating gaze that seemed to pierce right through the morning haze. And then he murmured to his impassive bodyguard, a command that echoed with chilling finality. "Non la lasciare, don't let her leave." Just like that, her life changed forever. Elena Bianchi was practically a master of invisibility. A scholarship student, she juggled a demanding academic schedule with a part-time translator gig, fueled primarily by caffeine and a relentless drive. Her mornings usually involved a frantic dash into Café Sempione at precisely 7:58 a.m., hoping to snag a working Wi-Fi signal to print resumes before her crucial 9 a.m. interview. She was focused, determined, and utterly oblivious to the silent power dynamics at play around her. 2 tables away, casually sipping a ristretto that probably cost more than her daily meal budget, sat Matteo Re De Luca. He was the undisputed head of the syndicate, the kind of man whose name kept Interpol's whiteboards perpetually full of intricate diagrams and unresolved cases. With an almost unsettling ease, he was simultaneously negotiating a complex heroin route and influencing a mayoral election. The unspoken rules of his presence were simple, yet absolute. Speak only when addressed, pay your bill without question, and, if you were lucky, walk out alive. Then, Elena's phone buzzed. It was her nana in Palermo, her voice a frantic whisper about mounting hospital bills. Instinct took over, the kind that bypasses logic. Elena answered, her words a rapid-fire cascade of Palermitano slang, her voice velvet-soft, rolling her RS like a forgotten lullaby. Matteo's cup paused, suspended halfway to his lips. That cadence, Sicilian, coastal, achingly identical to the lullaby his own mother used to hum, before the rival Caruso family brutally silenced her with 2 bullets, 25 long years ago. He didn't hear the rest of Elena's call. He only heard the ghost of his past, resurrected in her voice. Marco, the bodyguard, moved with an almost imperceptible grace. A polite, yet firm, hand on Elena's shoulder. "Miss, the signore would like a word." Elena's brain, usually so sharp, raced through the cold, hard facts. Exit blocked, 2 burly men strategically positioned at the door, and Matteo's notorious reputation, the kind that generated chilling headlines. She knew instinctively that running would only make her prey. So, she pocketed her phone, squared her shoulders, and walked over. It wasn't bravery. It was a calculated survival strategy. Matteo studied her, his eyes like steel. He took in her threadbare coat, the faint shadows under her tired eyes, and the defiant tilt of her chin. He spoke in flawless English, a language that somehow felt more intimidating coming from him, asking where she had learned that accent. Elena, refusing to be intimidated, countered in equally flawless Italian, asserting that accents aren't learned. They're remembered, a part of one's very being. The corner of his mouth twitched, a fleeting flicker of something unreadable. He didn't threaten her, not directly. Instead, he simply stated, with an air of absolute certainty, "You'll accompany me until I decide otherwise." When Elena, gathering every ounce of her courage, refused, Marco moved again, blocking the cafe door with a silent, immovable presence. The cafe owner, his face pale with fear, lowered the shutters, his complicity bought by years of silent protection and thick envelopes of cash. Outside, the city of Milan continued its bustling morning stroll, oblivious. Inside, Elena's freedom evaporated with the last wisp of coffee steam. She was trapped. The plush interior of the black Maserati was a stark contrast to the grimy cafe, a silent testament to Matteo's world. As the city blurred past, Matteo laid out his offer, a deal that felt less like a proposition and more like a carefully constructed trap. He needed her to translate a stack of handwritten letters, found in his mother's old safe, letters penned in her specific, almost forgotten dialect. In return, he would pay enough to wipe out Nana's crippling medical debt. But the alternative? A chilling promise. Refuse, and he would ensure her interview, her visa, her entire life in Milan, quietly combusted into nothingness. Elena weighed the options, the brutal calculus of extortion against the desperate necessity of her grandmother's health. It was a choice no one should ever have to make. Finally, she agreed, but not without adding her own clause. Daylight hours only, a strict one-week deadline, and absolutely no touching. Matteo's smile was winter cold, a predatory glint in his eyes. You set boundaries with me? Remember, Tesoro? He purred, the endearment laced with menace. Cages come in silk. It was a chilling reminder that even her small victories were on his terms. As Elena painstakingly translated, the faded ink on delicate paper began to unfold a sprawling, generations-old saga. Angelo De Luca, Matteo's father, hadn't been the lone wolf history painted him as. Instead, he'd partnered with the rival Carusas, a clandestine alliance forged to smuggle priceless art out of war-torn Sicily. But true to form, a double cross had shattered their pact. The final letter, tragically unfinished, hinted at a trusted courier who had vanished with a fortune in Caruso jewels and, more shockingly, a newborn. A child who could very well be Matteo's hidden half-sibling. The implications were staggering. Each page Elena translated peeled away not just the secrets of the De Luca past, but also layers of her own carefully constructed emotional armor. She found herself noticing Matteo's meticulously manicured hands, the surprising gentleness in his voice when he spoke, however rarely, of his mother. He, in turn, watched her, captivated by the way her mouth shaped the dialect he had long forgotten, a complex dance of memory and unspoken desire tangling between them. The air in the room grew thick with unspoken tension, a dangerous, magnetic pull. Word, as it always does in these closed, shadowed circles, traveled fast. Lorenzo Caruso, the ambitious, volatile heir to the rival clan, soon learned that a translator was poking through old De Luca family secrets. He didn't hesitate. A bounty was placed on Elena's head. Bring her alive for questioning, and kill the bodyguard for sport. A casual display of power. The stakes had just escalated dramatically, and Elena, unknowingly, had become the prize in a deadly game. One night, consumed by a particularly challenging passage, Elena stayed late, poring over a faded, intricate map. Suddenly, the sharp crack of gunfire ripped through the night outside. Marco burst into the room, his shoulder blooming a gruesome red. Without a moment's hesitation, Matteo shoved Elena into a hidden safe room, his eyes feral, alight with a primal, protective fury. For the very first time, a flicker of genuine fear crossed his face. Not for himself, but for the woman who, he realized with a jolt, could have walked away from all of this if he had just let her. The thought was a bitter, unwelcome taste. After a discreet doctor patched up Marco, Matteo poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into heavy crystal glasses, handing one to Elena. The whiskey burned, a welcome distraction from the lingering adrenaline. "Why haven't you begged to leave?" he asked, his voice rough. Elena shrugged, a gesture of weary defiance. "Because Nana needs the money, and because running means bullets in the back. I prefer front row seats. Thank you very much." He stared at her, a long, searching gaze before speaking low, his voice tinged with a vulnerability she hadn't heard before. "My mother used to hum under her breath while sewing, the same low, melodic lilt you use when you're concentrating." He paused, taking a slow sip. "I thought I'd hate hearing it again. Instead, I hate the thought of never hearing it again." It was a confession, stark and unexpected. Translation: attachment, inconvenient and absolutely undeniable. It was his way of admitting she had become something vital, something he couldn't bear to lose. Deep within the final, brittle envelope, Elena's fingers brushed against something unexpected. A small, yellowed birth certificate. Her breath hitched. A girl, born in Palermo, her surname listed as Bianchi. The father, Angelo De Luca, the mother, Rosa Caruso, the runaway courier, the woman who had vanished with the jewels and the baby. Elena's own birthday matched. The world spun. She wasn't just the translator, a mere bystander in this dangerous drama. She was the direct heir to both bloodlines, the walking truce and trigger, the living embodiment of their intertwined histories. Her hands shook, the paper trembling in her grasp. Matteo, sensing her shock, read the sheet over her shoulder, his face whitening with each word. All the power plays, the slow-burn flirtation, the dangerous dance they'd been performing, coalesced into one stark, undeniable truth. Keeping her near hadn't been strategy or convenience. It was, in a profound and terrifying way, survival for her and for him. Their fates were irrevocably linked, bound by a secret that could either unite or destroy them both. The revelation hung heavy in the air, a silent, volatile storm. Matteo paced the marble floor, his mind racing through the brutal options. He could eliminate the evidence, eliminate Elena herself, and tie up all loose ends, as his world demanded. Or he could leverage her very existence, this unexpected, living link, to force a peace summit, a desperate gamble for a new kind of future. He laid both options on the cold marble counter. Like loaded dice, each roll carrying unimaginable consequences. Elena, her voice brittle with a mix of shock and dark amusement, laughed. "You still think in terms of owning pieces, don't you?" she challenged, her eyes flashing. "Maybe try trusting one." The words hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown, and in that moment, something shifted within him. He looked at her, truly saw her, not as a pawn, but as a force. So he did. He handed her his encrypted phone, a device that held the keys to his empire. He told her to set the meeting place, to choose the neutral ground. If she walked into Caruso territory alone, he said, it was her play. But he'd back her with every gun of the syndicate, if she needed it. It was an act of faith, terrifying and absolute. The chosen location was an abandoned opera house in Catania, its grand chandeliers draped in ghost-gray sheets, a fitting backdrop for a meeting of specters. Lorenzo Caruso strutted in, arrogant and confident, flanked by 20 armed men, a clear message of intimidation. Elena entered alone, a striking figure in a simple black coat, her hands empty, her chin held high. She spoke first, her voice clear and resonant in the cavernous space, offering a deal. Joint custody of the lucrative smuggling routes, shared profits, and a definitive end to the generations-old blood feud. Lorenzo scoffed, a sneering laugh echoing through the empty theater. He clearly underestimated her, until she added, in flawless, biting Sicilian, that any bullet fired through her would ignite a media storm of unprecedented scale. She'd already emailed irrefutable evidence of both families' illicit dealings to 3 major investigative journalists, with a dead man's switch set to release it if she didn't check in. Power, she asserted, isn't always a gun. Lorenzo scoffed, a sneering laugh echoing through the empty theater. He clearly underestimated her, until she added, in flawless, biting Sicilian, that any bullet fired through her would ignite a media storm of unprecedented scale. She'd already emailed irrefutable evidence of both families' illicit dealings to 3 major investigative journalists, with a dead man's switch set to release it if she didn't check in. Power, she asserted, isn't always a gun. Sometimes it's a send button. Matteo waited in the wings, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs, ready to storm the stage if needed. But Elena never glanced his way. She negotiated like someone with nothing to lose and everything. A future, a family, a legacy to inherit. Lorenzo, cornered by his own ego and the cold arithmetic of her threat, agreed to a ceasefire, 1 year, renewable only if both clans prospered. It was a fragile peace, but a peace nonetheless. Outside, dawn painted the Baroque balconies with streaks of rose and gold, washing away the shadows of the night. Matteo caught Elena's wrist, his grip gentle but firm, searching her face for any cracks, any sign of the immense pressure she'd just endured. None visible. "You could have told me your plan," he murmured, a hint of exasperation in his tone. And rob you of the chance to trust? She teased, a mischievous glint in her eyes. He framed her face with his calloused palms, his thumbs tracing the line of her jaw. I said don't let her leave, he began, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. I never said she couldn't walk out on her own terms. Then, even softer, a genuine plea beneath the gruff exterior. Stay because you want to, not because I paid. She rose on tiptoe, a silent acknowledgement, and kissed him. A taste of whiskey, gunpowder, and the intoxicating possibility of a future neither of them had dared to imagine. It was a kiss that sealed more than just a bargain. Nana's surgery was a resounding success, her medical bills quietly settled by what was officially termed De Luca charity. A wink and a nod to the new reality. Elena continued translating, but now, she also wrote for herself. A memoir, reclaiming her narrative, turning her extraordinary entanglement into her own story. The ceasefire held, surprisingly firm, and the streets of Milan and Palermo stayed quieter than they had been in decades. Matteo, he learned that boundaries aren't necessarily cages. Sometimes, they're invitations to come closer, to understand, without crushing what you cherish. Some evenings, Elena still answers her phone with a casual pronto, and she watches his eyes warm, a silent testament to their journey. Because every reminder of the past, every echo of that fateful phone call, is also undeniable proof that their improbable future survived. It's a powerful thing, that survival. If you felt that espresso shot of tension, that slow burn romance, and that electrifying twist, then please, give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more stories where danger meets destiny, and drop a comment below. Would you dare negotiate with a mob boss? Or would you run before the first chow? Let me know. From a simple cafe chair to a tense opera house showdown, Elena Bianchi turned one fateful phone call into an entirely new life, one she built on her own terms. Remember, sometimes the very thing that seems to trap you, an accent, a secret, a mafia king's unexpected curiosity, is exactly the key that ultimately sets you free. Thanks for watching, stay fearless in your own stories, and I'll catch you in the next one.